question at the end. We will do the Q&A time as well. Sorry, Darren, go right ahead.
No, thank you. Yeah, I just thought I'd take the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be able to talk with you. Obviously, I was at iFish 5. Seems like a long time ago where I met some of you. We've sort of been still working in the health, safety and wellbeing space, particularly in the fishing sector here in New Zealand. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on what we've been up to. Some of it may be pertinent, some of it may not, but I just thought I'd do a bit of an introduction anyway. A little bit about me. So I'm actually from New Zealand's oldest fishing family, which we don't have a lot of history here, to be honest. So we started commercially here in 1827. So, you know, that's a long time in New Zealand, certainly not from a European perspective. We provide safety management systems and services for maritime and health and safety and wellbeing training for the maritime sector here in New Zealand. We're a private company and really just get out there and help the small guy and the larger guy understand the regulatory requirements around maritime safety. We also do things like run environmental observation programs. So we're currently we're involved in the 300 camera rollout on commercial fishing vessels here in New Zealand. We put together e-learning, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. We've got a product called Marine Safe NZ, which is providing free online health and safety and wellbeing resources for fishers. And we do a lot of, we're really a communicator and a translator between the regulator and the regulated, largely. So I spent my time many years at sea as a skipper, and then been ashore, but also worked for the safety regulator. So I've got a reasonable understanding of each side of the fence, so to speak. This might be a little bit busy and you might not be able to see that, but the presentation will be shared. I just thought I'd start, obviously PFDs are topical, important to this group. So there was a survey done. So Maritime New Zealand is our maritime health and safety regulator in New Zealand. They're our government agency for safety. They haven't really done a lot in the commercial space, to be fair, for PFDs, etc. But they have recently put out a survey for recreational fishers between 2015 and 2020. So I saw there's some interesting reading in that, so I thought I'd just quickly touch base on that. So what they did find was, 45% of New Zealanders participate in recreational boating each year. So we are a bit of a boating nation. That equates to about 1.67 million people, which again is not large numbers, but on a small island like New Zealand, it's reasonably significant. As you can appreciate, New Zealand is an island, and we are surrounded by water on each side. In the 6-year period, there was 92 accidents resulting in 98 fatalities. Most of them resulted from individual people on board being required to enter the water suddenly. So I'm sure a lot of this is not new. Our summer peak, so summer months, January, February, there was certainly a peak, so an elevated amount of fatalities, but then an elevated amount of people on the water. So that's our warmer season. 23 people who died were not wearing life jackets compared to 10 who were wearing a life jacket. 80% of the deaths over the 6-year period were highlighted as the most common accident type being accidents resulted in at least one person on board having to enter the water unintentionally. So I guess it's the surprise factor, isn't it? You've got one person on board, limited ability to call for help or to be assisted, and unintentionally ending up in the water. So again, those statistics would be relevant globally. And 75% of all the events occurred with only one person on board. So that's actually quite an interesting learning for us, because we've got a lot of people going to sea by themselves. So there's inherent risks associated with that. Some of the key points The report highlights accidents occurred suddenly and often without warning. So again, that won't come as any surprise. Multiple people entering the water unexpectedly in challenging conditions. So again, weather plays a significant factor. People falling overboard while alone, as we discussed, that's quite an alarming number and something that I know Maritime New Zealand are paying attention to. So therefore, they're alone and limited ability to call for help. Life jackets available. So it's a requirement for our recreational fishers. They must carry PFDs on board, enough for everybody on board. I guess where it falls over a little bit is it's at the skipper's discretion when they choose to wear them. So it's pretty much accepted that crossing a bar or in adverse weather, the requirement is to wear PFDs, but there is a fair bit of discretion as to whether they should wear them on those calm, wonderful days. And of course, within that discretion is probably where fatalities lie, to be honest. The three main causes of people requiring to enter the water: capsize, swamping, drugs and alcohol. So 28 fatalities were due to the vessel capsizing or rolling at least 90 degrees. 14 died because they were not wearing life jackets versus 11 that were. Now I have got we had an event here. We've actually had, for New Zealand, we've had a pretty poor year for recreational fatalities, and particularly for charter fishing type arrangements. I've been involved in 9 fatalities in the last 3 months. So, and that's where people are paying to go out and they might be dolphin watching or recreational fishing. So they go out on a charter vessel. So we had in October, we had a fatality in a little wee town called Kaikoura, and effectively it was a group of elderly people. So there was 11 people on a 12-metre aluminium recreational type craft, and they were out bird watching. So they were all late 50s to 70s. They all had auto-flate PFDs on, and I guess very unusual set of circumstances. They were steaming along at approximately 10 knots, and they were looking at seabirds. There was an aggregation of seabirds, so they were heading towards those, and a humpback whale breached in front of them. So the vessel actually hit the whale, rode up on one side, and then slid sideways down the other and turned upside down. So unfortunately, 5 of the elderly occupants were trapped on the inside in the cabin. Cabin had obviously upside down, water entered, and the auto PFDs had auto inflated, sticking them to the floor, I guess, effectively the ceiling at that stage, and they drowned. So it was a tragic event. It's still being investigated, so we don't really know much beyond that. The skipper was thrown free from the vessel, and he was assisting 6 others. So he had his six people huddled together doing the appropriate things, and unfortunately 5 perished within the hull of the vessel. So I think there's going to be some fundamental learnings from that. Certainly the use of self-inflating versus manual, and there's a lot of noise happening in that space at the moment. So certainly a bit of a tragedy for little old New Zealand. So swamping, 7 fatalities were due to capsize or sink. 2 people who died were not wearing life jackets when they entered the water, compared to 5 who were. So that there's quite interesting statistics there, where there are some occasions where the fatality rate with PFDs is higher. But again, when you combine that with working remotely, lack of communication, entering the water unexpectedly, delayed time for rescue, there's no surprises in those sort of statistics. Another interesting one that's taken us all a little bit by shock is drugs and alcohol. You see, in a total of 21 accidents resulting in the death of 22 people, either the skipper or the deceased were confirmed to having measurable blood alcohol levels. they had either consumed alcohol or a quantity of illegal drugs in their system. So again, that's obviously drug and alcohol in society is a global issue. But again, it seems that boating and alcohol and drugs absolutely don't mix, as we know, but it is still lightly policed in New Zealand. There's very, very rarely that anyone will be breathalyzed or drug tested in the recreational sector. In the commercial sector, commercial fishing and tourism vessels, yes, quite a common thing, but not so much in the recreational sector. Okay, so on this one, you see 73% of people who died had a life jacket available to them. 27% the deceased did not have the life jacket available. 58% of the people who died were not wearing the life jacket when they entered the water. So again, that's that voluntary nature, which is certainly something that needs to be looked at. 58% people who died were not wearing, so I've touched on that when they entered the water. 42% of the deceased were wearing a life jacket. 34 people were known to have died despite having a life jacket on when they entered the water. And by far the most common type of event was those in kayaks. So we do have a lot of kayaking around having quite a large shoreline, reasonably sheltered waters. Kayaking is quite common in New Zealand. And you'll see that victims under 55 were split 50-50. Victims over 55 were twice as likely to be not wearing a life jacket when they entered the water. Again, obviously a little bit of a cultural issue there, or a little bit of learning to be gained out of that particular statistic. So we're on average 16 to 17 fatalities in our recreational fleet per year. Males are overrepresented. 90% over the last 6 years are male, 10% female. So again, there is an overrepresentation of male, but there is as well in the general recreational boating sector. Any questions on that? So I didn't produce the report, but it was completed by Maritime New Zealand. I've spoken to them about it. I think, Rebecca, you're able to share that, or I think you might have already shared that report. I can connect any of you with the author if and when required. So if there's no questions on that, I'll pass on to the next. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Darren, I had a question about that. The statistic, 35 people who did have life jackets on still drowned. Do you have any more information on, was it defective life jackets, or what else might that account for that?
Well, I had a quick question, a discussion with them yesterday, and it seems, remote individual operators and delayed time to rescue seem to be a factor. Like, just the ability to raise the alarm seemed to be something that came out reasonably strongly, particularly those that, in remote areas. Recreational craft here in New Zealand are required to carry EPIRBs, but they don't carry personal EPIRBs. So I can certainly, Ed, get some more information if you want to maybe send us any direct questions through Rebecca, then I can get answers to that specific question.
Darren, I was curious what the water temperature is around New Zealand typically.
Winter months, 8 to 10 degrees centigrade. Summer, upwards to 18 to 20. So it's not, it's cold and warm.
I have a question about the deaths. Is it mostly offshore? Because I know that New Zealand has a lot of inland lakes, but they're cold. But they're quite sizable. There's a lot of recreation going on. Is there a big difference between offshore fatalities and your inland?
The kayak is predominantly rivers and lakes. That's, in your correct cold water, rapids, those sorts of things. So they're overly represented in the freshwater, the inland lakes, etc. The recreational, the general recreational vessels, we lose a lot of people on bars, like bar harbours, and off the beaches. So a lot of beach launching, where we've got miles and miles of beautiful flat beaches, where you can take your four-wheel drive vehicle down and launch anywhere off the coast. But people get caught out, I guess, and because a lot of the coastline is so accessible and there's not, it's open to the public, people will get their four-wheel drive vehicle, drive 100 miles to a remote place on a remote beach, and off they go. So they're a long way away from rescue services. We had a tragedy at the beginning of the year called the Enchanter. So it was a charter vessel, and it was fishing up in right up in Northland, a very, very tip of the North Island, up at the Three Kings. And the vessel was hit by, they say, a freak wave, but anyway, the vessel was capsized. 6 people perished, so 12 ended up in the water. And it was such a remote area that we didn't have, and it's almost a third world thing, but there wasn't enough aviation fuel for the rescue helicopter to rescue the other 6 of them.
Wow.
So they actually had to fly from the main centre, which was Auckland, and go up. I think they managed to get 6, and then were low on fuel, and they discovered at the very tip of North Island we didn't have an aviation fuel supply, so it had to be transported via road, which was a 4-hour journey, and that no doubt was a contributing factor to the other 6 perishing. It's all part of a significant inquiry, et cetera, and that probably won't happen again, but it just gives you an idea of the remote nature of some of the even recreational type operations.
Yeah, no, I mean, the attraction and the beauty of the isolation is what brings people there, and yet that does make any kind of rescue really challenging.
Absolutely. So what I might do is just move on to, so we're doing a lot of work at the moment. I'm involved in the next 2 projects. So, and I guess the link between PFDs and fatalities and what we're doing here is quite important. So I've been involved in harm prevention in the fishing industry for quite a number of years. So I'll take you through a project we're working on called Marine Safe. And also well-being. So well-being and mental health in the seafood industry in New Zealand is a significant issue. We've recently had some research completed by an organisation called Litmus Research, and it's highlighted, it follows on from some research that we did a year ago. The inshore fishing results are a little bit, I guess, frightening, to be honest. I think we've got 52% of those surveyed, so it was a small representative sample of about 500 fishers, but the 52% are unhappy with their work-life balance and being in the industry at the moment. 32% want to exit the fishing industry as soon as possible. So there's definitely some challenges, as all primary producers, I think, globally are coming under pressure from various entities. It's being felt here in New Zealand as much as anywhere else. We're in a unique situation where we have highly sustainable seafood. Our fish stocks are better than they've ever been. Like I said, our family's been fishing for generations. We've never seen fish stocks like it, but the fishermen are unsustainable. They can't afford to catch it with compliance costs and fuel costs and everything else. So it's a time of change in the New Zealand industry. So I'll just take you through. So Marine Safe is a project that we started. We have our injury prevention agency, accident compensation agency. We applied to them many years ago to seek funding to develop some free health and safety training resources for fishers available online that they can do on their phone anytime, anywhere. We have a lot of low literacy issues within our sector, and it's pretty difficult to get fishers in a classroom, as you know. So we've been working on this for 2 or 3 years, and it's still developing and available to all of our seafarers. The ones currently at the moment are inshore fishing, but we're just starting on deep sea and aquaculture resources. I've worked with adult learning specialists and people within the industry. I'll give you okay, I'll go to this next one. So we actually surveyed the inshore fishers in New Zealand to see how they wanted to receive health and safety information. And it was actually quite clear, like they would prefer that face-to-face delivery on board, but as you can appreciate, that's a bit of a challenge logistically. And interestingly enough, the second preferred option on how to receive information was online, portable, mobile, on their phone, on their device, anytime, anywhere. So that gave us, I guess, the enthusiasm to develop an industry-specific learning management system and start putting material on there that's available for pretty much anyone in the fishing industry. But we have started off on an awareness level, so low level information with an assessment, et cetera, and we'll take them on a journey. We'll go all the way through to skipper training, et cetera, et cetera. I'll see if this video will play for you. There could be a little bit of lag, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. You hear that?
Come and join us on our Marine Safe voyage. Whether you are an owner-operator or a seafood company, as a PCBU, you have a lot of duties and responsibilities under the Health and Safety at Work Act and other legislation. Proving you are safe and meeting requirements takes a lot of paperwork and time. The industry needs a new way of managing how we demonstrate this in a dynamic and realistic way. We have this solution and know how to reduce your training costs and documentation burden. Marine Safe is a cloud-based learning management system where we can all collaborate, cooperate, and coordinate best practice. There are a wide range of free modules with supporting resources online. For example, induction and general health and safety on board vessels, helicopter rescue and watchkeeping, well-being and mental health, drugs and alcohol management, leadership at sea, and conflict management. Also, our most recent addition, the Responsible Fisher Passport series, taking your crew on an industry learning voyage and preparing them for the onboard camera project. Altogether, there are over 5 hours of industry-specific video content, accompanied by assessments and supporting resources, all hosted online, available 24/7 on any device. Marine Safe is working closely with the maritime industry and agencies and will continue to build relevant and engaging resources to support your onboard training. Marine Safe can also host your internal company training resources, making it available only to you and your team. We can upload your company's SOPs and validate competency using quizzes, completion acknowledgements, or signed checklists. Marine Safe can also host small safety reminders for specific machinery and tasks where risks are high using QR codes, safety reminders, and acknowledgement at its source. The Marine Safe system has front-end dashboards that are available for management that will provide you with compliance status at individual, group, or course level. Comprehensive training reports are also available to download or export. Upon completion of each course, a Marine Safe or your own company certificate will automatically be provided to the learner. Marine Safe has a dedicated support team to help your company build capability and ensure that your operation remains safe, compliant, and sustainable for all. Real-time learning, anytime, anywhere. Come and talk to us about how you can get on board with the Marine Safe voyage.
So that's just a little overview. You're welcome to go and have a look at any time. So it's marinesafe.nz. So the courses are free. Create yourself an account and yeah, have a bit of a look. So what we've developed is been running for a couple of years. So we have in 2021 we developed the vessel induction. Again, this is all awareness and very, very introductory level. We've done a module on induction, risk management, knife safety, life-saving appliances, fishing operations, wharf safety, manual handling, machine safety. Last year we're quite a busy year with helicopter rescue, watchkeeping, drug and alcohol awareness, and our staying ship shape is a mental health well-being, so how to recognise and self-manage mental health in the seafood industry. Some other well-being related ones, leadership, conflict, anger management, and then things like being a marine farmer, whānau, which is family matters, and various other little introduction type videos. As you saw in the video, we've recently put together the Responsible Fisher Passport, which takes you through all of the regulatory requirements and gives practical tips and ideas on how to achieve that compliance on board. We also have downloadable resources, so we're very much going through all the regulatory material, pulling it down, condensing it into 1 and 2 pages, putting it into Fisher Speak and loading that onto the platform as well. So it's a bit of a journey, but it's worthwhile and will continue doing so. And all of these resources are free to anyone in the seafood sector, which is really the key to its success.
What is whānau matter? Whānau matters? What is that?
Oh, whānau. So that's Māori for family.
Oh.
Yeah, apologies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's not really a word we use here in Plymouth, Massachusetts, but
yeah.
Got it. Might add it.
Okay, yep, no, that's quite a common term here, actually. I'll get through, I've got another one here. This is just a little example of some of the content. Like we use video, we use animation, we really use anything that we think could be engaging. So I'll see if I can get this one to play.
To help you understand how your back gets injured, it's good to know how it works. Your spine is like a stack of cotton reels. The cotton reels are your vertebrae. Between each vertebrae is a squashy pad or disc, which is where your back movement comes from. To bend forward, the muscles pull the vertebrae over, squashing the discs on one side and stretching them on the other. Sometimes, if we are lifting badly with a bent spine, twisting at the same time with a heavy load or sudden boat movement, the disc can bulge out too far, resulting in a protruding or slipped disc. This will put pressure on the nerves to the arms and legs, causing extreme pain and at times reducing your ability to move. Most back pain is more likely to be caused from the muscles that support and move your spine. They simply get tired from overwork and may spasm and cramp due to the inflammation around the overworked parts of your spine.
That's just another little snippet.
To help.
So each one of these modules, there's an assessment quiz and questionnaire. So it's pretty much designed not to fail. Anyone that watches the video can pass it. It's very much an awareness program at this stage until we start ramping it up. I'll probably skip through. I've got another fishing operations one here, but I'm running out of time, so I'll just probably skip past this next one. We have a lot of footage of actual onboard imagery, and of course the key to it is people actually get to see others doing it correctly. And a lot of the fishers that we work with are very visual creatures, and they get excited when they see boats, fish, and fishermen. So it's certainly a way to capture them and share that health and safety message. What we've done a bit of evaluation on it, and the results at this stage are pretty promising. 82% of people have said that they believe it's an effective tool, and 9% believe it's improved their health and safety awareness. So that's something positive. But again, it's early days, and we're still growing and developing and identifying different opportunities. So the last thing I'd like to talk about just quickly is First Mate. So it's the Seafood Sector Support Network. There has been research done in Australia and New Zealand that rates of depression and suicide amongst our commercial fishers is double the national average. Dr. Tania King has done a lot of research on this in Australia, and her findings are being replicated here in New Zealand. So, but it's something that we're not talking about. It's something that the fishing industry is not talking about. We're about 3 years into this campaign now, and they are talking about it. You know, I think we've opened some floodgates to a certain degree. So there's absolutely a well-being mental health issue amongst our fishers and seafood people in New Zealand. So First Mate is a charitable trust that's been set up, partially funded by government, partially funded by industry. And we provide personal and business well-being and support for anyone in the industry. I'll just quickly play this little video.
In our sector, no 2 days are the same. It's tough work, we'd all agree on that. But you either love it or leave it. By nature, many of us have a can-do way of working. We're at home around the water. Some families have been doing this for generations. But ongoing changes, increasing costs, and public expectations all mount up. And even the toughest of us need some help at times. That's where First Mate New Zealand comes in. First Mate supports those in the commercial seafood sector. We're here with the guidance, direction, and support to make sure you can navigate what's ahead. Mentally, physically, financially, and legally. And rise to any potential challenges. We want you and everyone around you to have not only what they need to survive, but thrive. First Mate is new, but it's an initiative that's long overdue. We need to have each other's backs. A way for each of us to get any support we need. Our scope of support is broad, from helping you navigate regulations, to understanding your finances, to building personal and business resilience. First Mate lets you talk with others, learn with them, be with those who get it. That's what whānau do. They put each other first. First Mate, supporting our seafood whānau.
So we've got 14 navigators. So that's people from the industry, retired, semi-retired, and effectively we're based in the main ports just as a port of call for fishers and their family that you know have got something going on. A lot of them are struggling with compliance and the documentation required. We can help them with that. We run events. We have a lot of resources. You'll see they're managing stress for fishers and all in fisher speak. So, you know, we're running events around the country, trying to reintroduce the community to their fishers, to try and you know bring a little bit of that pride back to the fishers. We've done a few of those. We're running innovation workshops, so you know we're letting fishers dream a little bit. You know, if there was no requirements, what would you change? And we're actually in the middle of having an industry transformational plan implemented throughout the New Zealand fishing industry. So there's some opportunity for them to make some changes. So, yeah, it's been quite a labour of love, pretty intensive. You know, we've dealt with suicides and all sorts of things. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's a journey well worth taking because the need is there and it's something that we're pretty passionate about. Here's just a couple fishermen, New Zealand fishermen, talking about once we opened the floodgates, initially they were very reserved and wouldn't talk about it. But once you throw a boat and a fish and a cup of coffee into a conversation about mental health, they definitely open up.
I remember feeling quite stressed when I got really tired, and being able to link the two together took me a while. On the last day, I would actually feel bordering on anxious from time to time, and that anxiety was simply a result of not having enough sleep. everything snowballs, and everything did snowball, and it got out of control to where I was drinking too much. I was arguing with my partner too much, and it affected our whole life and our whole well-being together.
So that's one of the hardest things about people's lows, depression and stuff, is people can be perfectly fine one day, or they're guarding it, not showing it, and then the next day they can commit suicide. So it's one of the things to be aware of on your mates and people you're around, is to really keep an eye on each other, look out for each other, be aware that your mates are going to have downs. And if you can have those conversations before they get to those lows, is probably the best advice. Like, don't wait till your mate's at rock bottom to have a yarn.
I remember being...
Yeah, that's it from me. So sorry, I've gone over time a little bit, but yeah, so that's pretty much what we've been up to in little old New Zealand. It's been a busy old time, but you know, it's a worthwhile journey supporting the health, safety, and well-being of those in the New Zealand seafood industry.
Darren, thank you ever so much for sharing all that very important information with us. It's really great. And, you know, I think the beauty of this group is to be able to learn from all over the place what people are doing and what we might not be aware of. So it's really heartening to see all the hard work you guys are doing. I did put in the chat Darren's contact. It was also on the end slide, but if you want to reach him, you can just grab anything from the chat. And let's open to some questions if people have any questions for Darren on what he's just been sharing.
Darren, that was incredible. And a lot of the things that you're doing are sort of a couple of years ahead of what we're doing here with a fishing partnership, especially in the trauma department. And I love that you're naming things like keeping things, staying ship shape instead of dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and labeling people, which might be off-putting for people to come for help. But you said something very interesting, that 32% of the people wanted out of fishing as soon as possible, and I think you said 60% would like to get out. Could you elaborate on that? Is it because it's too expensive, too stressful, not enough help? I mean, what's happening in your fisheries that you see people want to exit so badly?
I guess the environmental movement, in a nutshell, regulation. So they're all having cameras forced upon them as we speak. There's a new regulation about to be implemented where pretty much every commercial fisher must land every fish that touches their deck, regardless of whether there's a commercial value or not. So we're going to see landfills full of waste fish. We have MARPOL 199, which will require a lot of our operators to repower their vessels over the next 4 to 5 years. It's poorly written, misguided regulation, in my opinion. And there's been quite an anti-fishing campaign from entities like Greenpeace in New Zealand. And you know, they're a small family and they take it personally. And you know, we have fishers being assaulted by members of the public. Particularly, we have a very controversial fishery called the Hauraki Gulf, which is out off our main capital of Auckland. So there's nearly 2 million people in Auckland. There's 1 million recreational boaters go out of there, but it's also a commercial fishing area. You know, we have occasions where recreational fishers are steaming, around the fisher while he's trawling or dragging, throwing beer bottles at them in abuse, and fishers hiding and cowering in their wheelhouse. So society has turned, and it's very traumatic. And most of the fishermen I know will not tell you they're a commercial fisherman. The pride is gone, and it's something we're taking very seriously. And you're seeing that, the results, the outcomes of that in our accident rates and our well-being rates.
This is interesting stuff, Darren. I'm a commercial fisherman myself, involved in the training. So as you said, there's two sides of the fence, and regulation is so well-meaning most of the time, but not going to work if it's at the expense of the entire industry.
Absolutely. We're encouraging our regulator to create regulation with a people focus. Ask themselves, how will this impact the mums and dads and the children? We were making good traction, but as with all these things, it changes as per the political cycle.
But presumably New Zealanders still like to go out to restaurants and eat fish, right? So what are you doing? You're just pushing the catch away from your shores, out of your back door. It's still going to happen somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, it might end up a little bit like Australia, where most of they have huge seafood resources, and a lot of it's imported from other entities that don't have the environmental procedures and policies in place that we do, and we're quite proud. I mean, New Zealand's well known for being a global leader in some environmental standards, such as seabird protection, Bethnic impact. I mean, a third of our exclusive economic zone is closed and will never be touched with commercial fishing, and we have the fourth largest economic zone on Earth. So we're sort of doing our bit, but to be fair, the seafood industry has been hit really hard with COVID, and they are just trying to survive. So getting those positive stories and messages out there